Hello.
Here we are.
Hey.
Hey.
Test. Can you hear me now?
I'm glad StreamYard didn't thwart you.
Yeah, it didn't like my old browser, so I had to try a bunch of different things, and Jay helped me.
Jeez. It'd be like that sometimes. Well, thanks everybody for waiting for us. It gave people some time to get here and see that we're doing this too. So, yeah, everybody, if you didn't notice, my channel is monetized. So you guys can send super chats. You can get channel memberships. You can send super thanks and all the other wonderful things. So make sure you like and subscribe and share this with everybody. We have a really super exciting show. It is my very first time having Jamie on as my guest, the very amazing author, researcher, lovely woman extraordinaire, Jamie Hanshaw is here. And we are going to talk about Redpills and Princesses again. But I wanted Jamie's perspective. I had Patrick on to kind of talk about this topic from his very manly perspective. And now we're going to get a graceful, feminine perspective. Me, who knows? I'm somewhere in the middle on that spectrum. But, we're going to talk about this whole red pill dating scene that is so hot. All these crazy, dating shows, manosphere shows that are so popular right now. And then we're going to talk a little bit about like my experience on Twitter with some of the princess trad girls who have a completely different conception of what it means to be a traditional wife or whatever than probably I do. So we're going to talk about all this stuff, and we're gonna give you our opinion on some of these manosphere guys. It's a little tricky. I just want to set it up a little bit because I do have a couple of really good friends in this sphere who I think are great. Aaron Clary would be one of them. He's a cranky, old, lovable curmudgeon. He's my pal from way back in the day. He actually is the one who encouraged me to write my book. He's an author. He has fantastic books. And the reason I think he's good is he doesn't do this like, oh, pay me a bunch of money and you can do Hustlers University and I'll teach you how to like turn your girlfriend into a cam girl. He doesn't really do any of that. He kind of more gives men advice who probably didn't have parents or their parents didn't really parent them, which is a pretty common thing. So he'll talk about things like minimalistic living and bachelor pad economics. He has a book about that. He has another book called Curse of the High IQ, which I loved. It was really helpful for me as a person who probably didn't know that I was kind of smart and why I had trouble navigating the world sometimes because of that. So check out Aaron Clary's stuff. I really do like him. And there's some other good people in the space. But there's also some problematic folks. And we're going to talk a little bit about them. And I'm going to attempt to like share the screen because Jamie sent me some really good clips kind of illustrating what we're talking about when we see the problematic side of the red pill. So the red pill was supposed to be like a Matrix reference, just meaning you're seeing the world how it really is, or it's like you're accepting the truth, right?
It used to mean like, red pill to the conspiracy that, I don't know, back in the day, like Federal Reserve, or it was more political. It didn't mean that you eschew women or like, MGTOW, or you take on these dating game scenarios.
Right. Right. And I think the feedback I've gotten from people I've talked to, like I've asked a couple of people I know in the sphere why they call it that. And they say that they are describing the world as it is. Now, this is something that I've heard Rollo Tomasi say. I've heard Justin Waller say this. These are some prominent manosphere guys. And they've said things like, hey, I'm just describing the problem. I'm just telling you how it is. I'm not giving you a moral prescription, and I'm not telling you how to feel about it. But there's a couple of problems with that. I mean, to be perfectly frank, a lot of these guys straight up lie about the money they make, about how popular they are, about how successful they are with women. A good example would be a fraud huckster named John Anthony, who my husband has called out on his show and proven that this guy is a total fraud. Even some of the other manosphere guys have kind of called him out on that. But he's not the only one. There's a lot of these guys that will tell you, oh, I make like 6 figures a month. Like they'll have these wild claims that they are just, making money hand over fist, and they just got women coming at them and just falling out of their pockets, and they can't even hardly walk down the street because they got so many girls all over them. And to be honest, like a lot of them behind the scenes, what I've heard around the block is that's not true.
No. Yeah.
There's a lot of good reason to doubt that.
Well, first of all, it's strange watching people argue back and forth on Twitter, and I stay out of it online. I just keep everything and just save it for my show. But watching y'all argue back and forth about this made me realize some things, that people don't understand psyops.
Right.
They don't understand narcissistic abuse. They don't understand con artists, and they don't understand agent provocateurs.
Yeah.
Because there's no way these people are getting as popular as they are just in an organic way. Because like you see a clip of somebody saying something and it's insane. It sounds crazy, and you go into the comments thinking we're all going to roast this guy, like, this is insane, right guys? And you're reading the comments, you're like, right guys, right? And everyone's agreeing with them, like, oh yeah, Top G, you tell them. And I'm like, this is crazy. So I don't know, like, do you want to start with the guys or the girls? Because I like how you named your show Princesses and Redpills.
Yeah.
Because I have a lot to say about princess programming as well. And that's a
10-year-old
idea that I've been cooking, and I've had a lot of twists and turns in my perspective on princesshood. But yeah, so what we're going to discuss tonight is what you guys can't see when you're being lied to. You can't see when you're being conned. Like you said, they're not getting all of the money and riches and women that they say they are. And this is why, you elect goblins to rule over you. And this is why you elevate, CHILD, ABUSE people, and you call them stars, and you let people convince you to cut off your body parts, because you can't understand when the demonic is speaking.
Yes.
And I think
I think that the world, the way it is right now, which is why some of these guys do accurately describe maybe how things are. That might be true, but that is the reason that people can't even see the demonic, because it's mainstream. It's the normal thing. So like I was talking to somebody yesterday and explaining, I've got daughters who are 20 and 22, and their friends, their peer group, the people they're hanging out with, this is really how they are. Like, people will see maybe the whatever podcast and they'll think, oh, they found the worst of the worst, like dumb OnlyFans bimbo girls, and put them on there. Maybe, but there's actually a lot of that. Like, my daughters are messaging me daily being like, Mom, my friend at work who I tried to make friends with, she has an OnlyFans, and she's in like an open relationship and all this stuff. Like, for them, it's a very real reality that this is like the mainstream, and the things that I say are weird. I've even had people try to convince my daughters that I'm some kind of like that I'm the psyop brainwasher who is insane and crazy and trying to like control them or get them into abusive marriages rather than like open polyamorous ones or something, which they think are the good thing, right? These other people think this is the good thing, and they think that I'm the crazy person. So like in my experience in the world every day, it feels like a big fight for us with our daughters, trying to tell, like we're constantly telling them, no, the world is filled with all this demonic influence, people are acting crazy, none of it makes sense, and we try to teach that to them, but it's hard. It's hard when the whole rest of the world is telling them, no, we're normal, there's millions of us, you and your parents are the weird people. So you're right about that. People cannot see the demonic because it's so saturated in the culture.
Yeah. So I thought, I'd try and give you some tips and tricks because I went through therapy with an Orthodox priest who is also a licensed therapist. And this has a lot to do with, we worked on profiling people, dangerous people that can be of harm to you and cause you to harm yourself, and, just you have to recognize when the demonic is speaking to you, like in my case, with intrusive thoughts. So we have to go through like, is the pronoun you or I, or like, so when you are under some kind of oppression, or if it's just your inner critic or the Holy Spirit. So I think a lot of people don't have these tools and they fall for these con men, literal con men.
Yeah.
I don't know if you just want to start right off the bat with old Tater Tot.
We can start with them. Why don't we try? I've never tried sharing a screen, you guys, and I am not the tech master around here. It's Andrew, but let me just try, because Jamie sent me this clip of Tristan Tate that I think is the perfect opener for what we're talking about when we're saying that these guys are not so great. So let me see if I can actually do this. We'll give it a shot. Okay. And I know okay, share tab audio. Perfect. Okay, let's give it a shot and tell me in the chat if you guys can see this.
She's trying to share a screen. She's trying to pull up something on her. Yeah, well, while you're trying to do that, let me just talk about this article real fast that I found. And This is from a Muslim lady, Safia Sabreen. And it's called Andrew Tate Declares Himself the Messiah, Messenger, and God. Now, all this, I mean, the first time I saw this guy was just scrolling through TikTok. And he just said something so outrageous. That's what I was remembering, hearkening back to, like, oh, that's so crazy. But then you see he's got millions of followers and all of this influence, and everybody in the chat is agreeing with him. Now, I think a lot of those things are also psyops, comments, and likes and things like that. But I just couldn't believe that you can't tell when people are full of shit and hate and just worms and scum. So here he is. Tate is heavily involved in witchcraft. Now, when he's getting arrested, I'll just hold it up to the screen right like that. This is the picture they don't show you. They show him getting arrested with the Quran in his hand, like some kind of photo op, right?
Right.
Two women with him. One, he posted her. He says, "A witch works for me. The only child and only child. Her mother was a witch. Her grandmother also. Generational stock of Romanian witches. I don't have to necessarily believe in witches to hire one. Every king should have a witch who works for him. Endless spells." So.
Yeah, and by the way, his whole religious LARPing is one of the things that irritates me most about him. You guys might know that he pretended to be Orthodox for a while. So he gets in trouble in the UK, he moves to Romania. When he's in Romania, he's Orthodox because 98% of the population there is. That kind of runs out of steam. He gets in trouble in Romania and he moves to Dubai, and now he's Muslim. Yet he's posting, videos of himself daily, drinking alcohol, smoking. He still, I believe, has the cam girl business going on in the background. I think I don't know if he says he doesn't or whatever, but he does a lot of things Muslims don't do. So I don't think that I think he uses religion as this shield to make people think that he's like this moral guy.
Of course he does. And here's a secret. He probably learned from his father, who was in the CIA, if I'm not mistaken, and who he tweets has done crazy things. Like, what was the thing? He said, my father used to knock me down when I was that's child abuse and that's really psychotic behavior, right? Like, that's not okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So here's the other girl that was with them. Her name's Luna Radu, or Elisha 33. Good old Maleficent.
Nice.
So she's part of the inner squad of tater tots. Witchcraft is part of her morning routine. She says, I love the smell of coffee and witchcraft in the morning. She's got plenty of dark goddess pictures on Instagram, with the black wings and sitting inside of rock pentagrams. What else? Yeah, so he's
got 2 witch girlfriends.
Right. And
but we're supposed to believe he's like now this devout Muslim, and he was Orthodox yesterday.
not just that, his personal magician slash hypnotist, she Iggy Hui, or Iggy Semmelweis. Anyways, so like he's got his own personal Rasputin going on over here. There's hypnotist who's starting the religion of Tateism, and they want to like encourage people to burn the Quran and see what happens. And he's like, Iggy is like, as Christianity is to Judaism, as Islam is to Christianity, Tateism unto Islam. And you guys think this is crazy, but this is how cults start. I mean, they got to start somewhere.
Yeah, and I have to throw in here while we're on this subject, if you guys know who Sneeko is, he's another popular red pill streamer guy that nobody can figure out why he is as popular as he is. And he's doing the same Muslim LARPing now, of like Christianity is cucked, Islam is based and red pilled because we can have a harem and enslave the women, and young guys watch this. Unfortunately, I've had a lot of interaction with some of the most insane young, like incel type of guys on the internet, through the whole, the bears and the groypers and all the issues we've had with these people. I've gotten to kind of talk to a lot of them and find out a little bit about them. These are generally the most like isolated, outcast from society type of guys who are never probably going to get girlfriends. They're like so incredibly socially awkward, barely leave their house type of people. And they watch Tate. And if you go to his comments and stuff under some of his videos, it's like they worship him like he is a demigod. And they think that he is like, it's very similar Messiah story that we've seen over and over with like Elon Musk and Donald Trump and all of these figures, where the young men in America think someone's coming to save them, and this guy is our guy, and he's going to fix it, and he's going to save it. Sneeko's doing the same thing. He's, LARPing and going to the Interfaith Center in Dubai. All these guys are going to Dubai. And if you guys don't know what happens in Dubai, basically, TRAFF, the stuff that Tate is being accused of, it's probably one of the world centers for that now. It's like one of the places where it's basically legal and everyone knows it's going on, and there's all these rumors about the sheikhs and who they buy and what they do and Instagram girls. It's really disgusting stuff, but it's widely rumored to be true and nobody even denies it. And they all go to this interfaith center and LARP. And I think that because a lot of them do have like connections that make me suspicious, it might be something of a trap to funnel young impressionable males and get them into this one world religion interfaith center stuff.
Yeah.
Exactly. And meanwhile, behind the scenes, these guys are all dating witches and having, witches and wizards cast spells. Bizarre.
Yeah. And his pronouns are king and god on one of his profiles. He has a Tate Bible. See that thing?
Beautiful.
And oh, look at this nice he's surrounded by hot chicks instead of.
I mean, it's very guru-esque. It's very cult leader guru. It's yeah. Ugh.
Blasphemy. And you mentioned Sneeko, so I never even heard this person before. And it's just crazy to me. Like, I've been doing this for 15, 20 years, and I'll never reach the level of, profiles that these people reach. And it just seems like they become famous overnight. And that is super suspicious to me because I know how hard it is to get a following. I've been trying to do this for a long time,
Yeah,
and
they for sure at the very least get artificially boosted.
Yeah.
So like some of the people, could it be algorithms? Could it be that they buy like a chunk of their following first and the algorithm picks up on it? Maybe. But it's also highly likely that there's bigger powers at play boosting and promoting these people, especially with Tate. Like, I got into all kinds of trouble on Twitter for saying it's totally reasonable to think he might be CIA, given his dad's background, given the fact that he seems to be able to travel around, and everybody went, like you said, nobody understands psyops. People are going, why'd he get arrested then? If he's like on the dole with them, why would he get arrested? I'm like, that's a common thing. They did that with Terrence McKenna. They did that with Timothy Leary. They've done that with tons of these kind of people that they put in the pop culture. They will arrest them for a couple of reasons. One is to give them legitimacy that they're in some kind of fight against the Matrix, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm being targeted by the Matrix. The Matrix is trying to kill me. It wants me dead. Same thing with Trump, right? Trump, everybody posting the pictures of Trump on a cross and everything, and I was yelling at them to stop it. Same thing. It's like, oh, they're just really after you, but they have to go through him first. So they invent this like savior narrative that this person's being persecuted. That's one reason they may arrest him. The other reason could be it's often that they do that so they can pick the person up and debrief them, give them more intelligence, tell them what they're doing next, give them direction, things like that. So him getting arrested does not mean he's one of us, guys. He's going to save us.
You guys don't understand. All of this is theater. No, I mean, it just is crazy to me that you can't recognize fakery. Maybe you want to be tricked. I don't know. Because if you can give a insecure group, such as the people that you're talking about, the incels and the guys, if you can give those type of people somebody to look down on, then you can empty their pockets. And that's exactly what the Tate brothers do. Right?
That is what they do. So I'm going to give this a shot here. I've got the little directions. Let's see. Share screen. Chrome tab. Boop, boop, boop. And we want this one. And we're on share audio. Okay. Can you guys see this? Is it sharing? Let me see. I don't know if it is. Yeah, it says it's sharing it. So let me know if you can hear this. Nothing?
I don't see it on mine.
Okay. Let me see. Okay, it says, oh, I see it. I got to add it to the stream. Derp, there we go. Haha. Okay, we got it. So now I'm going to back it up because he started talking a little bit. But this is what we're talking about.
Nobody covers this topic. Nobody. But I'm going to talk to you about how to have sex with virgins. Virgins. Now, elite level playboys, these dorks who take these pictures with all these girls, they are usually paid. They're models, they're actresses, they're sent there by their agency. I do not pay for sex. I've never hired a prostitute in my life, and I won't. I don't need to. But when you don't pay for sex, there are advantages to that. You get the women no one else gets. Any sheikh in Dubai can hire the hottest Dubai escort and bang her. I could go to Dubai and bang the exact same escort. Why would I want to? That's disgusting. However, in my situation, you get access to girls that no one else has access to. When you run game like me and meet the women who I meet and roll in the circles I meet, you meet beautiful virgins sometimes. Me, I'll do 2 or 3 virgins a year. Now, how do you date a virgin when you're an ice cold player? There is a tactic which I'm going to share with you on how to date a virgin and how to take a girl's virginity. Typically, the first girl's virginity I took, I was 16 years old. She was a virgin, I was a virgin. It was rubbish. And what I did was this: I dated her. She was my girlfriend for 3 months. Then we had very boring sex. That's how I had sex with my first virgin. Now, the recipe hasn't changed, but the tactics and the implementation has certainly changed. Be their boyfriend for 3 months and be in a nice relationship with them. That is the recipe. I'm sorry, guys. You want to run into a virgin and fuck her the next day? Don't ask me how. I don't know. I don't think anyone knows. I don't even think it's possible. You have to be their boyfriend for an extended period of time. You then have to take her virginity on the 2nd month anniversary or something along those lines. And I'm going to teach you how to do it while still being in a playboy lifestyle scenario. What you do with your virgin is you turn everything into a date. I need to go have a business lunch with my brother or my friends. I make sure she's there. I Uber her in, I Uber her out. If I have to go for a drive, I make sure she's with me. I go to pick her up, do my drive, drop her off, go back home. If I have to go to a club, she's part of my double booking scenario. She's always with me at least 3 or 4 times a week, regardless of what I'm doing. I go to a lot of lunches and a lot of dinners. I eat at restaurants a lot. I take her to the restaurant. Nothing about my life has changed. I'm not going out of my way. I'm not making specific time for her. I'm not trying my best to take her on dates and show her a good time. What I'm doing is I'm adding her into my normal everyday life. Now, to me, I'm fucking my girls. I have my girlfriends, my relationships. I'm getting my sex. I'm having my drinks, hanging out with my friends. Nothing's changed in my life apart from there's some quiet girl next to me half the time when I'm out and I would otherwise be alone. But to her, in her mindset, Tristan is my boyfriend. He took me to lunch today and he dropped me home. He took me to the bar today. He was with his friends and he took me with him and then he sent me home. Tristan is my boyfriend. In her mind, we've been dating and then one day that day will come when she's ready and you'll know. You'll know because she'll make it obvious to you. No matter what you do with virgins, don't get pushy. Don't take them to your bed and try and sleep with them and get your dick hard. And no matter what, do not violate my golden rule with virgins. If she won't fuck you, do not let her touch you. Oh, you're a virgin, maybe you can suck my dick. No. It's desperate. Maybe you can wank me off. It smells of desperation. Do not do this. Baby, you're not ready? I understand. Let's go to sleep. Go to sleep like a fucking man without sex for 1 day if she stays with you. For fuck's sake, have some dignity. Or some virgin giving you the worst blowjob in the world, trying to explain to her how to... Guys, grow the fuck up. If you're with a virgin in bed, she's not ready, cool, go to sleep. Nothing will make her want you more than this. So I've come into situations where I've been seeing these virgins for a month, 2 months, nothing about my life has changed. And then they'll come to me and say, oh, maybe we can do something special this weekend. Boom. I book a hotel. We have a few drinks at the hotel bar. Take her upstairs. Virginity gone. As far as she's concerned, I've been her boyfriend for 3 months. She's in a long-term committed relationship. And all it's taken is me to order Uber when having my free time with my friend.
Okay, I think that's enough of him. But, you know, when I watched that, I immediately thought of when you did the Anton LaVey stream, the one you just did on Rockfin, and then when we did the Balenciaga one where we talked about him. It sounds very much like the same tactics that he was promoting in his book that he wrote, what, back in the 70s or something?
Yeah. And another
this,
thing,
like a very manipulative, very much like when he said, "Don't let her touch you. Nothing will make her want you more." But really, you're running game on her so you can take her virginity, and then after that, who knows? Like maybe just dump her or whatever. But like to me, that sounded very much like the witchcraft that LaVey was teaching women how to do, but like the male version.
it is absolutely demonic, and you know, the main thing that these freaks, weirdos, goblins, witches, pumpkin pop, all these, what they like is the destruction of innocence.
Yes, exactly. That's
And
exactly what it
what
is.
he's doing. So he's giving you advice on how to destroy someone and take their virtue.
Yeah.
As if you were just if she were a piece of toilet paper.
Yeah. Yeah, and they don't care. And the reason that I wanted to do this and talk about these guys, aside from the obvious fact of how like morally wrong this is, especially for probably most of the people watching my channel are gonna maybe be Christian or have a Christian bent to them for the most part. Maybe a lot of you aren't, and it's even better that you're here. I'm super glad you're here. But aside from the fact it's obviously morally wrong, is the fact that everything I try to do, all my work on feminism, all the things I'm trying to say about feminism and why it's bad, these men doing this shit, excuse my language, is throwing gasoline on the feminism fire. Because women see that. Women see this and they say, and I had a lady say this to me, they're going to treat me like crap anyways, no matter what I do. This is how men are. This is what they're about. So why shouldn't I lie to them, scam them out of money, use them? Why shouldn't I, use a guy to get a couple kids and then leave him for someone I like better and take half his stuff and his kids? Why shouldn't I? Because look what he would do. This is the stuff that's going on. So from my perspective, these people are not helping my cause. They're like, I take one step forward and they drag me 2 steps back because women see this and they're not going to hear my message. So.
They're creating the feminists.
Yes.
And here it goes even deeper than that, because let me play you this TikTok. I'm just gonna hold it up because I'm boomer tech. Okay. Oh. Why is oh man. My phone's connected to the speaker out there.
Oh no. Shut off the Bluetooth maybe.
And then you ignore her for a week and
okay, here we
woman
go.
high highs when you pick her up on a date and you go, let's fucking go get in my car, let's go here. You give her high highs and then you ignore her for a week and extreme lows. That kind of psychological roller coaster really gets a girl hooked. The guys who are consistently texting them Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, they don't do that good. When she's on a phone call, I don't care if I want to talk for another hour. When she's laughing, that's immediately when I go, all right, peace. And I turn off the call. And when you do that 4 or 5 times on a girl, always hang up when she's in tears laughing, psychologically, she's hooked to you. But what men do wrong is they end the call with, okay, I have to go now. And she goes, okay, I guess I'll see you later. And it gets awkward. When she's laughing is when you dip. You leave. You give her the pain of losing you. When people say, Zerga, that's manipulative, we're assuming she's not manipulating the shit out of me for my time, money, resources. If you give a woman...
So we're in this deadlock where the men say, well, the women are shit, so why shouldn't I do this to them? And the women say the same thing. They say the men are shit. Why shouldn't I do this to them? And someone in the chat just asked if one of these guys did me dirty. No. Alex, the guy on it's a split screen. The top guy is John Zerka, who's just one of these same guys. They might as well all be the same person. The guy on the bottom is Alex from the Playing with Fire channel, and my husband and Zen Shapiro have been debating him, and they've been setting up debates with people from both sides of the spectrum, and it's basically it's been the traditional Christian guys versus the red pill guys for months with Alex and Andrew. So that's why I said, oh God, it's Alex. But yeah. So we do interact with some of these people and we talk to them, and what we're trying to do is kind of infiltrate in a way so that there is some other option. I don't want this to be the only option. You either watch the feminists or you watch these red pill guys and that's it. I think that the Christians should jump in there and we should be explaining from our worldview what the actual solution is, because these guys don't have a solution. It's just hedonism. It's just materialism, hedonism, do what thou wilt, right?
Well, check this out. So what he's describing in that is called a trauma bond. You
Yes.
run hot, cold, you keep them, off their beat. You're manipulating somebody using psychological warfare on them that is straight out of this type of book. How
Yes.
to make people dissociative, how to make them crazy, how to make them, have multiple personalities, lose their mind, turn to drugs, alcohol, all of it. These are the tactics. That's why I don't think that these people just rise up out of nowhere. I don't think Fresh and Fit. I think these are agent provocateurs because honestly, I just don't think you can be that obtuse. I don't know.
Just based on what I've seen, I wouldn't say it's not possible because,
Okay.
like, honestly, Alex, I think, is that obtuse. But then again, he's not as big as those guys,
But
and that might be the reason why.
yeah.
But I do definitely think they get artificially boosted for sure, and some of them might be outright agent provocateur frauds hired to do this. That's a very real possibility, and I wouldn't discount it. We've seen that a lot before in the other things that you and Jay and I and Courtney Turner and people like us cover all the time, that there really are these people who are hired to do this. Everybody knows there's feds, right? Everybody knows there's feds online. That's now that everyone's really aware of that. Do you think they don't hire people to get behind a camera like this and push certain messages or things like that? Of course they would. So I would definitely, we're not going to probably know who's who unless something comes out, but you have to be thinking that when you're watching this stuff, and you have to be aware that there's a lot of lying and fraud and craziness going on.
And in the pickup artist game, red pill curriculum aligns with trauma-based mind control so perfectly.
Yes. It's basically the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same. It's the same type of, yeah, if you just read or study any of this, it's the same kind of thing. Like the guy was just explaining how to do that. And it's not that, like, Jamie and I did a whole show on witches and how witches do this to men. This is just the men doing the same thing back. But the thing that makes it so concerning is that since the sexual revolution happened, there's a reason why it happened. Why it's kind of started in the 30s, really. And then it was kind of put on hold by World War II. And then in the 60s, the CIA actually culture created the sexual revolution and pushed it on everyone. And what happened when they did that, historically, about 80% of women and about 40% of men were able to reproduce. When we look at like genetic studies through all of history, that's kind of what we see. Now we are in a situation where we've talked about like the incel problem. That's a real thing. And the reason is once the sexual revolution happened, we broke the contract. So there's a stat everybody likes to throw around on these shows that 100 years ago, only 15% of women were not virgins on their wedding night. Now, whether or not you think that's perfectly accurate isn't the point. It's that now it's less than 5% of women. Mm-hmm. And what this means is that are all the men benefiting from this? No, but that's how they sold it, right? They sold the sexual revolution as though all of the men are going to get free sex with no strings attached. You don't have to protect and provide. You don't have to be a family man. You don't have to have all this responsibility. You can just have the sex because we have birth control. We have abobos. And you don't have to marry her. You don't have to put a ring on it. You don't have to buy the cow. You can just get the milk. But what happens is the only people who are benefiting from that are like the very top percent of guys who can kind of run this game. And these guys selling this crap to you, young men out there, it works for, they can give you all the phony baloney success stories of who their program worked for that they want to. But the reality is if you're a guy who's struggling with women, this stuff is not going to get you women or get you what you want. It works for a few highly manipulative, very powerful, very wealthy guys or phony baloney guys who are complete and total con artists, which is probably the bigger pool of them.
Yeah,
so
I'm sure it works
great for that they have the answer. They don't.
I'm sure it works great for sociopaths.
Yeah. Yeah, but the average guy out there, I'm sorry, if you're like, you know, you're 50 pounds overweight, you don't have a job, you have a really hard time getting up off the couch or separating yourself from your video games. You've got other problems, like personal issues you have to sort through to improve yourself. That's what Patrick talks about all the time. He talks about that kind of personal improvement. Whereas these guys are saying, no, don't improve the quality of who you are. Just get the facade, right? Dress a certain way. Rent an expensive car if you have to for a date. You don't have to even own one, but you could like rent a Bugatti or something. You can scam people. And these men are teaching guys how to take their girlfriends and turn them into cam girls and make money off of them. And they'll say, oh, we're just flipping the script back on the feminists. That's what we're doing. So therefore, there's nothing wrong with it. However, that's not the case. There is definitely something wrong with that. If you have to use the loverboy method, which if you guys don't know what that is, it's one of these guys will get a girlfriend. They'll be dating a girl. Oftentimes, there are even girls who aren't from their country. Like these guys are in Eastern Europe or Dubai or places where they can do these things. They will have an online girlfriend. They'll find some girl. They'll convince her that they're in love, that they're in a relationship, and she should come out there to be with them. And then once she's there, it can be anything from physically taking her passport so that she cannot leave and has to do this, to just using the psychological manipulation tactics they were describing to convince her that if she really loves him, she should become one of his cam girls. She'll be his best girl. It's as they would say, ice cold pimping. They're just pimps. They want to turn women into products for their own personal gain. And if you don't think that's immoral, debate me. Like literally find my email in the description and contact me and we will debate this, because it's easily provably very immoral and it's satanic. It's like satanic witchcraft is what they're doing to people.
It's trauma-based mind control. And where were we going to go with that? Oh, so the next logical step is, when you commodify women like that, you're going to, like we talked about this on my last Rockfin show, next it's going to be sex machines.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
Because women are just objects.
Yeah, I mean, one of the big arguments that Andrew had with Alex recently was over corn and whether corn should be legal or not. And of course, whenever these guys debate Christian guys, this is where you see the worldviews really starkly in contrast, because they almost always come from an atheist background, or they're LARPing like the Tates. There's no way you have even a decent Muslim wouldn't see this as moral. It's completely counterintuitive even to Islam, but certainly to Christianity. So these guys have an atheist, materialist view of the world. They think that, everyone can just choose their own morality. It's whatever, they're total moral relativists. It's always like, I don't want to tell people what to do with their lives. And it's good for you, Andrew, if having a wife and kids makes you happy. But what if other people don't want that? What if other people are happy when they're just screwing around with multiple different people and just, having random sex with whoever? I mean, that's what makes me happy. That's what I like, fast cars, and I like sleeping with lots of chicks. And if you want a family, you can do that. That sounds really reasonable for some reason to Americans, because they all have this like libertarian underpinning of like, we all have the right to pursue what makes us happy. And that's why we can't have this like liberal, classical liberal mindset of just moral relativism where you're like, well, hey, if the girl's dumb enough to fall for it, right, then, that's her choice and she's making her choice. It's not that simple. And these people, they know, like, they come right out and tell you how to manipulate. They're not giving somebody an actual choice. They're not saying, look, I just want to date you until I can take your virginity. And after that, I might just dump you. So if you're fine with coming to all my meetings, so I can have sex with you. They're not upfront. They're not honest.
That's even worse than coffee date, like business meeting date. That's terrible.
Yeah, ew. But I mean, I can see how like a younger, more impressionable girl, especially like somebody, when you think of someone who's probably a virgin, she's probably very young. She probably doesn't have a lot of experience with men. And she's thinking, if he's bringing me to his business meetings, I'm important. That's why that probably works. It's convincing this girl that she's important to him. Why would he be bringing me to a business meeting? Yeah. Well, it's because he's deceiving you into thinking you're important to him, when really it's just him trying to see if he can get this over on you. Like, really, that seems to be the thrill. It doesn't seem to be, the guy's saying, I'm having sex with all kinds of people. I'm getting sex all the time. I'm after
It's
her
not even about the
because-
pleasure of the sex part or the intimacy.
Right.
Or
Like
it's
you
just
said,
about
it's just
hurting
about
someone.
spoiling. Yeah, it's spoiling her innocence. It's taking something. That's why they say take her virginity. They're trying to take something from you.
Yeah.
So, I mean, these people, all of them. So like Rollo Tomasi, Sneeko, all these different guys, Alex from PWF, the Fresh and Fit guys, they either LARP as Muslim because they think that's the easiest one, because then you can somehow, I guess, rationalize the promiscuity and the multiple women. But most of them just come right out and say they're atheists. They're like, I don't care about your religion. I don't care about your morality. I'm going to do what I want. And other people have the choice to do what they want to. Therefore, I'm not hurting anyone. I'm not doing anything wrong. This is fine because she has a choice. And this is what I keep trying to tell people about feminism. It's not about choice. You think it's about choice for women. It's not. It's about removing the people who would have had the vested interest in your welfare, the people who would actually care, like a husband, a father, a brother, and throwing you to the wolves and seeing if you can spot the psychopaths and the narcissists and the witches and the warlocks and not get conned by Tristan Tate or someone like him. It's less protective. So,
well, you asked me to talk about traits of a high value man.
Yes.
So I just kind of wrote down a couple things. And since you brought up corn and stuff like that, well, the first thing on my list was, sexual discipline.
Yeah. And if you guys are wondering why I asked her this question, it's because there was this big, super viral clip of the Whatever podcast with Justin Waller and Lila Rose, where he's explaining what a high value man is, and Rollo Tomasi's there, and he's talking about a high value man. It's kind of his thing. He coined the phrase years ago. And somebody asked Rollo, what's a high value man? It was Destiny. Destiny, the King Coomer of all people, asked Rollo, what's a high value man? And he was like, well, I can't really answer that because it depends. It depends what this and what, and he couldn't really answer it. And then Lila Rose asked Justin Waller, how come you preach discipline in every other area? You tell men to do fitness. You tell them to have fiscal responsibility. You tell them to manage their money and their social media image, but you can't have discipline when it comes to just being monogamous, or you don't have any sexual discipline. And he couldn't even look at her. He couldn't even look at her in her face. He was just staring down, which I've never seen him do. So,
that was definitely a home run for her. I saw that, and he's like, I just want you to know I'm not triggered by you. And everyone's like, oh man, she got him.
Well, it was a very good question. So I thought when Jamie and I were talking about doing the show, I wanted to talk about a high value man, and I want to hear Jamie's take on what she thinks a high value man is, because neither of us love the, describing certain people as high value and the sexual value marketplace. But
I hate that.
There is some truth to the concept of those things, but as Christians, like, we would always say that everyone's an image bearer of God. All people have value. However, when it comes to dating and stuff, there is some truth to it, right? It's like if you are a really impressive man, you probably don't want a 300-pound woman who can't get off the couch and can't put down the remote control, right? We don't necessarily equate that to value. So, like, Jamie, tell us. So you said sexual control is
apart from
also on my list.
Apart from the classic virtues, honest, loyal, kind, those kind of things, I think, the sexual discipline is number one, because that's what your relationship is going to revolve around, right? And I mean, if I was giving advice to guys, like, how could you instantly put yourself in the top 1% of men walking around the planet is, put down the corn smut. Like,
yeah, and stop just sleeping with whoever. Like, people have asked my husband this because he, like, when he was younger, he was very popular with ladies. We've been together forever, so now we're old people now. But in our younger days, he was very popular, and his friends would always be like, man, just girls meet you and they just get like instantly obsessed with you. And they're thinking he must be running game like this. And he was like, no, he's like, honestly, my secret is like, I'm not like trying to sleep with all of them. And the fact that I'm not trying to sleep with all of them is very like appealing to them for whatever reason. Right. So I agree. Like if I meet a guy who's not instantly trying to, if I'm young Rach at 20 years old and I meet a guy and he's not just instantly trying to sleep with me, that's very intriguing. It's very appealing.
The majority of guys that are attracted to these things, Tate and have spent their whole life on the internet, and their prefrontal cortex is damaged. I don't know if you've ever looked into this or anything, but like when you do all that corn, it literally puts holes in your prefrontal cortex that is responsible for love, empathy, compassion, pair bonding, all those non-essential things. They have brain damage.
Yes.
From this.
Yes, and if you guys, I don't know if any of the mods want to find my MK Ultra and transgenderism article on my Substack and post it, but that shows you right there. They use corn to actually do mind control. Like it was part of MK Ultra experimentation. Dr. Robert Heath was doing some of this. They found that corn is just as useful to rewire people's brains, to implant certain ideas. It opens you up in the same way that drugs like LSD do. It's very, very powerful. That's why sex magic has always historically been considered the most powerful type to people who practice witchcraft.
Yeah.
Because it just opens you up, and it's so incredibly powerful to manipulate your brain and your feelings and your emotions, and even like the spiritual dimension in you. It's a very easy way to access that. So always beware of overexposing yourself to any kind of sexual anything, really.
And the older you get, the more you notice when people are leaking their sexual energy, it's just kind of cringe. I don't know about you, but it's like somebody who walks into a room and is like wants that. It reeks of damaged person when your eyes are open to more spiritual ways of seeing the world. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah. Oh, I do. I definitely feel like that. It's like there's been people in my life very close to me who've had like this histrionic personality disorder, is what psychologists would call it, where it's like they are just desperately in need of sexual attention. Please think I'm sexy. Please look at me. And I've seen this with a lot of these OnlyFans girls. Like there's one that goes by Femoid. She also goes by Lav. She has tried to quit doing OnlyFans multiple times. She always goes back to it. Part of it is for financial reasons, but she has come right out and said, I love people looking at me naked. I want people to see me. I love people lusting after me. It becomes addictive. And now she's on like a rad femme LARPing kick where she's saying that this is all terrible stuff, but it's just her trying to find a different way to get the same attention. But I've seen this with young women where, especially, the hotter they are, the more attractive they are, if they can get a lot of attention for that, it becomes extremely addictive. It becomes their personality. And if and when that ends, it's like devastating to them. And this is what I say to all these young girls. And also you see this phenomenon with the trans people, right? You see people like Blair White, the ones that are really passing and can fool a lot of guys into thinking they're women. They get such a high from the sexual attention. And I'm always just saying to them, like, what do you think is going to happen when you're my age? I'm not even like old, right? Okay, I'm 42. But are you still going to be being sexy at 42? Are you still going to be posing with your legs open and your boobs pushed up when you're 42? Like, that's not a good life plan. This is and I'm just trying to appeal to anything I can to try to snap them out of it. But I feel like it's extremely addictive, and people who can access this, they get a sense of power and control from it. And then these red pill guys are doing the same thing. They're manipulating passions is what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. I think it's funny sometimes when girls try to say, well, she has fake boobs or she has plastic surgery. She's not real, blah, blah, blah. Why do you like her? And it's just like, because they're trained to want the simulacra, the fake. Like, they like it even more sometimes. Like, they don't care that she's fake, okay? They like it.
Yeah, it's almost better because then she's truly an object. It's like she's something between a real human woman and a blow-up doll, right?
And Anton LaVey talked about that, the false and the fake, and people want to be lied to, and the inversion is satanic. So, because for something to truly be satanic has to be an inversion of something good.
Yeah.
Right? Like the pentagram turned upside down. So it's still the image, but it's the backwards, or it's wrong, or it's defiled, right?
Yes.
So this corn is going to usher in an age where it's not going to be weird to have a real doll or a fake wife or a wife-like. That was a movie I just watched about, robot wives, the sex bot, but it's not going to be what you think, because that's also going to be AI. It's going to be hooked up to the Internet of Things. So if you think your wife is controlling now, imagine if you had a robot telling you you don't have enough credits and you can't eat this, and like she's just going to be a worse nag.
You need 5 more credits for fellatio.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's just going to be another way to shuttle people into control. So if you're hearing us say we think there could be agent provocateurs or people who are part of this beast system put up to this or boosted on purpose to promote this stuff, and you're going, but why? That's weird. Like, why would they do that? Well, the same reason they do all the other things, right? If you could get this to the point where right now the birth rates are super low, they're well below replacement and have been for a long time. You have Elon Musk coming out and talking about this and how it's a problem. After the elites have been telling us for how many 400 years now that overpopulation is the problem, suddenly that fast, Elon Musk is coming out and telling everybody, hey, we have a population crisis. We got to get the birth rate up. But at the same time, everything on YouTube, everything on TikTok, everything in all of these social media algorithms is pushing the red pill stuff, which, by the way, very important to note, people like Rollo, people like, I can't remember off the top of my head who else, but there are several of them who straight up tell men, get a vasectomy in your 20s. Don't have children. Having a legacy is old world bullshit. It's old thinking. You're stuck in an old paradigm. That's not the way it is anymore. Get a vasectomy in your 20s to young men. So if you've got to where only the top 10 or 20% of men are even having sex, the other 80, 90% can't even manage that, and then the 10 or 20% who are getting vasectomies, well, then you have things like the surrogacy boom. Suddenly there's this boom of surrogate mothers, designer babies for gay couples, this kind of thing. This is all happening at once. Do you think it's purely coincidental and totally organic, which if you follow any of my work, you'll know that I don't think any of the social revolutions really are organic at all. These things don't all come together and come about at the same time for nothing. So if they're pushing artificial wombs, surrogacy, also get a vasectomy in your 20s, everyone is on birth control, all this kind of stuff. And then you also have them coming out and saying, oh, we do have to get the birth rate up. It's a problem. It makes you wonder what they're up to. And, Neuralink is starting its first testing on humans. They're saying that they're going to have artificial wombs within the next 10 years. Now they often overcompensate and think they're going to do things faster. But yeah.
Did you see the AI created images of Elon making out with artificial?
No, but that's kind of funny. Well, I mean,
he went viral, but it's going to be like
himself has 10 children with, I can't even remember how many women, 5 or 6 women, and the last couple, I believe, were through surrogates. So he had a baby with his on again, off again girlfriend who's no longer his girlfriend. They had one the normal way, apparently, and then the next one or two, I don't know if it's one or two, through a surrogate.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. I mean,
one of the Kardashians just had a surrogate baby too.
Yeah, I think
so this
Kim's
is
had
getting
a couple.
more popular.
Yes.
So what the goal is: sex without procreation and procreation without sex.
Yeah, exactly. Inversion.
Yeah.
Total inversion. So all of this stuff isn't being rolled out at the same time for nothing. It's all part and parcel of the future that certain people want to create. And you guys know who owns the platform we're on right now, and you guys know who owns these social media companies. So could that be why these things are all popping off at the same time? I don't know. I think it could be, but I think another thing, well, I'll save that because I want to hear more about High Value Man. Let's finish up that before we go on.
Okay, yeah. So, just recognize that all the men are in varied stages of this addiction or recovery. And that is the real global pandemic. That is the girls are becoming the prostitutes and the men are the voyeurs, and they wouldn't be doing it if there was no money in it.
Right.
I
mean, the average OnlyFans girl only makes $156 a month, though. So that leads me to wonder if a lot of them aren't making. There's a small amount, just like the red pill men. There's a small amount at the very top that make a ton of money. Most of the rest of them don't even make enough to pay a car payment every month. So you wonder, why are they doing it? And I think it is because the currency now is attention. It's likes and attention and dopamine hits. And it's like, I'm somebody. I have an OnlyFans. That's what everyone's doing. And especially women, we are designed a bit to lead, right? Or to follow. We're not as independent minded always as men. We would kind of prefer to follow like what the group around us is doing, what our in-group is doing, what our girlfriends are doing. There's even like a social contagion of divorce. There was this landmark UK study about it where anytime a woman would initiate divorce in a friend group, the odds of her friends initiating divorce went up like 20 times or something.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I heard the same thing about like gaining weight.
Yeah. Women are a bit of a hive mind for the most part. Most of us, we are, and it makes sense, right? It makes sense for survival reasons because, like, as someone who's had 5 babies, when you have a baby and you're pregnant and you're nursing, you're very incapacitated and you're very dependent on the group around you. And traditionally, that was our mothers, our grandmothers, our aunts, our sisters, our neighbors. But now we don't really have that. We're all very atomized. Intergenerational families don't live together. A lot of families live all over the country. My family, unfortunately, is that way. And so you can see how women want safety and security. They're going to follow along with the group. So if all your friends have an OnlyFans, you're going to have an OnlyFans. It's just like kind of the way that things go. And that's how feminism took off like wildfire. It's like, how could it become so dominant in such a short period of time? It's probably for that reason. And it's promoted in the media and the culture. And so nobody wants to be the weird woman. Nobody wants to be me or Jamie. Jamie's out here trying to warn everybody about like this crazy psychological satanic stuff that's going on, psyops. And I'm out here trying to warn people about like where these things came from and why you don't have to follow them. But we often, we get a lot of crap for that. We were sharing our mean comments when we were hanging out together.
Oh, yeah.
Our mean comments that people leave us, saying horrible things to us and wishing awful things upon us.
It gets even more frustrating too, because like back then I was trying to show people the hidden occult things and stuff, and they'd be like, oh wow, that's terrible. But now I show people it, and then on top of that I have to explain why is this terrible.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Yes, it's bad if your little girl wants to like claim she's a witch now and wear a black pointy hat and ride on a broomstick. Like, do I really have to explain why Satanism is a bad thing? But apparently that's an extra step we have to take now, because
exactly, that's where we are. Yes. And I think that's part of the reason why, like I was telling Andy this morning, I think a lot of the phenomenon we see with girls wanting to transition to being boys, I think a lot of them hit puberty, which is hard enough on its own. but then you're on social media, you're scrolling through Instagram and everything is big butts and fake boobs and fake lips and eyelash extensions and hair extensions and filters and makeup. And I think young girls, some of them, I can see how I would have been this girl. I would have seen that and I would have been like, oh, I can be a man instead of whatever the hell this is. Because I wouldn't want to go into that meat grinder. I wouldn't want to be like, okay, well, I guess I have to start an OnlyFans so I can pay for my lip fillers and my lash extensions and my hair, because I won't look like all my friends. This is what everyone does. You have to look like a wisdom tooth with tarantulas on your face now to be a woman, and you have to be sexually accessible. And you could see how a lot of young girls would be like, no, I don't want that. Whatever that is, I don't want to do that. That sounds horrible and upsetting to me. And if there's an option for me to be a man instead, I'm taking it. And I know that might sound crazy, but I just remember being a tomboy and trying to get used to my woman body when I hit puberty, and it was hard enough. And I was in the normal, like, early 90s where we had baggy jeans and we had like bigger shirts and everything wasn't like tight and short and showing everything. And you didn't have social media. We didn't have the intense pressure, and it was hard for me. So I'm just putting myself in the place of maybe a 12-year-old girl scrolling Instagram or TikTok and going, I don't know what the hell this is, but whatever this being a woman stuff is, I don't want to be a Kardashian Barbie. That sounds awful. And I don't want to just show people my bits and pieces. You know what I'm saying?
You just reminded me of that song by Beyonce, If I Were a Boy. Do you remember that? It's a long time ago.
I vaguely remember it.
But it was just all about what you're talking about. Like, it would be a lot easier on me if I got to act like that instead.
Yeah. And I mean, men have their own troubles, but when you're a 12-year-old girl, you don't see that. When you're a 12-year-old girl, you don't see that, you know, boys struggle in school and all the things I talk about all the time that young men face. They have their own horrific things to deal with. So I'm not saying it is easier to be a boy, but I'm saying if you're a 12-year-old girl trying to get used to boobs that you woke up with suddenly one day, and there's the option to not have to, you just see yourself going down this water slide of sexuality where the whole world is looking at you like a sex object, and you have an out from that. I can see how a lot of girls would take it, is all I'm trying to say.
Yeah, definitely.
So like, yeah, I think the corn is a problem. The vast majority of men have watched it recently, get sucked into it, and have problems with it. And it doesn't mean they're like a terrible person, because it's everywhere and it is addictive and it's easy to get sucked in, and a lot of people do. So if you guys go watch John Doyle's video, he did a very comprehensive video with tons of studies and references about this problem. And then he offers some solutions of how to get out of that if you're stuck in that problem. So that's a good video to watch if you're in that. But yeah, if you're a rare man who isn't ruled by your phone, if your black mirror is not controlling you, that's going to be very appealing and make you a high value man, because you're kind of in the minority.
What
else you got?
The second thing I wrote down was, and this is true for anybody in a relationship, can you take personal accountability? And I feel like this is such a pivotal thing, because it's impossible to have a healthy relationship with someone who is always like, it's not my fault.
Yeah.
It's someone else's fault. I didn't do nothing.
I didn't do nothing.
Yeah. This is a narcissistic attitude. This is a demonic attitude. This is the attitude of everybody on death row. They didn't do nothing. We were talking about this in our show with Jay about film noir, and lead characters that weren't necessarily Satanists, but they had satanic ideals. And that was one of the things. Like, I'm not responsible for my behavior. Like, we were talking about those guys, well, women are going to do this, so I might as well do this. So that's not a right attitude. You know, the having integrity is doing the right thing no matter what other people are doing. Yeah. Right?
Yes.
And feminism, I mean, I love your work and I think it's so important, but feminism is a symptom of a bigger problem, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And if you guys follow my stuff, I often say, like, pay attention to who started it, because It was basically the same guys who are doing this stuff now. It was just the like 1800s versions of them, the wealthiest, most elite, most fake Chad type of guys, right? That pushed feminism. The population didn't want it. The women didn't want it. It was pushed on them by like Rockefellers and Carnegies and Vanderbilt and those kind of people. It's like the Bill Gateses and the Andrew Tates and those kind of people of the time pushed it and pushed it and pushed it until they finally got it through. It took them a while to do, but yeah, it wasn't like women just woke up one day and decided to be evil. And I think a lot of people think that's what I'm saying if they just catch one or two of my tweets and they don't know the rest of the story. So I'm glad that you mentioned that because it's true.
Women are already being blamed for a lot of things they have no control over. I'm not saying they're 100% virtuous, but I'm just saying it's part of the abuse cycle. And they are targeted more, I feel like, by the dark side because Eve is the enemy of the devil, not Adam.
Yeah.
And when we go to confession, we focus on ourselves. So you're always thinking, how could I have done better? You're not trying to blame everybody else around you for your circumstance. You're taking all that responsibility and figuring out how you could be better, not how everybody else needs to be better. Right.
Right. So that's, I mean, honestly, that's one of the things I love most about my husband is that when he's wrong, he'll say, hey, I was wrong. That was I did it. It was me. I'm sorry. And then he'll do what he can to fix it, which is like a really attractive thing. And it makes it so easy to trust him. It makes it so easy to trust him because I know he has the ability to say that. So I agree with that one too.
What else did I? Oh, okay. Here's one: emotional regulation in men. So they talk a lot about women are so emotional and we're logical, so you have to put your emotions aside and listen to the masculine perspective and submit and all these things. But emotions are a part of our nervous system. Okay, they're not just this like crazy chemical bouncing around that is annoying. It's like this is an indicator of your overall well-being. Okay, it's a God-given trait, and even God has moved to actions in the Bible many times by emotion.
Yeah. No, it's not that emotion is bad, but like the one very abusive relationship I was ever in was a person who had zero emotional regulation, very good at manipulation, terrible at emotional regulation. And now, like, I went through that at a very young age. And now that I'm older, it was one of the things about Owen Benjamin that first tipped me off that there was something wrong with him was I told Andrew, I was like, he's really funny sometimes and he says some stuff that's good, but then he'll go on these like wild, hyper emotional, like unhinged, and it made me almost feel like this is disturbing because this is a 6'7" man. He's a huge guy. And if he can't regulate his emotion, that makes him dangerous. You know what I mean? That makes him a risk to everybody around him. So I mean, men do have to have emotional control because men do have the monopoly on force and they can be very destructive if they can't control themselves. So that's one of the biggest turnoffs is men that are emotionally unhinged and all over the place.
Men need to learn how to regulate their own emotions and not the woman's emotions.
Yes.
They need to know how to be like, I think of it as a lighthouse because women are going to have emotions. Okay, they're going to have strong feelings. And that's what you like about us. You want us to jump up and down and squeal when we see you and, like be happy.
And be passionate. We're like, I'm a very passionate person and like I care deeply about what I care about. And I do have pretty good control, I feel like, but I am a very like, if I'm mad, I'm mad. And if I'm happy, I'm like really happy, which is the vast majority of the time. But yeah, I'm just an expressive kind of like passionate person. I feel everything a lot.
So you can't talk women out of being emotional and stifle that. I see it as kind of a lighthouse and waves. So the guy has to be the hard, phallic, strong, rock hard thing that the wave just crashes against. It doesn't like lash back. It doesn't. It's along for the ride, but it's an immovable thing. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah, it totally makes
I'm
sense.
not going to be like bothered by this, but I'm going to let you have your moments and get it out. Everybody knows this. I mean, if you've even worked with children, I'm not saying women are like children, but there's a correlation there. You have to let them get it out.
Yeah.
Explain to them what's happening and what the circumstances are. And yes, you can be upset, or maybe you're like, just let them have their moment.
Yeah, Andy talks about this a lot because he says, look, I have 4 daughters and a wife, okay? I'm the only man in the house with 5 women. And he's like, almost every day someone's going to cry. Almost every day, like someone's going to have an issue or something. And I think when we were much younger, it was a little harder for him. But now he's like, he says, first of all, good luck trying to emotionally manipulate me because I'm just like Teflon to that stuff at this point after having all the teenage girls. But no, he also, like, he was sitting on the couch the other day and everyone thinks he programs me with this anti-feminism stuff, that it comes from him and he's like whispering in my ear, telling me what to say. First of all, he doesn't care that much about it. He really doesn't. I don't even think he's read my book. He might have like glanced through it or something. I don't know. But he was sitting on the couch saying, you know, after talking to these red pill guys a lot, I can really understand why a lot of women are saying, screw this. I don't think I want to get married. And I don't know if I want to do this. You know, like he's like, a lot of them are just pretty awful. He's probably, and I think it's appropriate. He's harder on the men and I'm harder on the women. I'm a woman, so I'm not going to go to the men and like lecture them and come on my camera and tell them how to be. But he will, because he sees a lot of what's going on and he'll be like, no, that's messed up. And he's got great friends like Zen Shapiro, who is like another really good, like solid patriarchal, very moral guy, very in control of himself, super in control of his emotions, like just a really solid man, good family man, and has all his crap together. And so Andrew's like, yeah, men like that should have families and get the chicks and stuff like that. We gotta, so they're just like kind of on this mission to unravel this red pill mentality of using up women and justifying it with stuff. And it's because they don't think it's good for men either. It's not good for men to tell them to do that. It doesn't work out any better for them than it does for us.
And then, well, we'll get to that in a second, but I just wanted to talk one more thing about emotional regulations. So a lot of men complain that their wife's not attracted to them anymore. And I know exactly the reason is because she thinks of you as a child, either consciously or subconsciously, because of your tantrums, because you don't clean up your messes, because you can't regulate your anger. So she sees all of these immature behaviors in there. And that is the number one thing that's going to turn a woman off, is if she's thinking of her partner as a child, right?
Yeah, that's true. I don't have, it's been a long time since I've had to deal with that. So maybe that's why that hadn't occurred to me, but I could see how that could be the case. I could see that.
If he's just another baby in the bassinet that she's got to pamper, that's not going to get her going. And I don't know if you saw this. I did this for that show.
Yeah. Hold it up so they can see it, because it's really cool.
But because I was like, you guys think that women want hyper masculinity, like Liver King, right?
Ew. Another total fraudster. Another total.
So I made a graph. I'm like, this is neutral, Ryan Seacrest, and then feminine or whatever. But it's not like that. It's like, we want adults, right? Yeah. This is the unattractive end of the spectrum. This is the more attractive, like people who act like grown-ups, can regulate their emotions, don't throw tantrums, don't make messes, don't play their video games and eat their tendies and their chocolate milk.
Yes.
And I'm sorry, but
milk,
y'all have too many toys. You have too many.
Like, mine doesn't do that either.
You have
mine
too many.
I'm so spoiled, honestly.
Too many like video games. Just, you're in arrested development. You are king baby attitude, and then you're trying to get all of these women to submit, like that's gonna happen, you know? If
Right.
you can't even put a roof over your own head.
Yes, exactly. Well, that's everybody, all the little frog people, all the groiper chicken tendy chucky milk boys online got very upset with me and decided they hated me because I said, if you guys want to have a patriarchy, guess what? We need patriarchs. Patriarchs are not little boys. They're not little babies who can't take care of anything and let the women pay all the bills and do all the work and sit there like this while they play World of Warcraft and have a harem. But this is what I'm saying when I say those kind of guys, the never grow up Peter Pan boys, think Andrew Tate's going to make us like some kind of Chad Muslim nation where they're just going to get granted like a harem of virgins or something. Yeah. I know that sounds crazy, but this is how these people think. It's absurd.
It's exactly how they think.
Yeah, it's really insane. But yeah, I think sometimes I need to be reminded of these things because I am very spoiled. Andrew, like, he barely spends money ever on himself. He gets like 2 or 3 video games a year if something really good comes out that he wants. He doesn't have much time to play it. So when he does play it, I'm happy. I'm like, I'm glad to see you with your feet up, like relaxing and playing a game because he's always so busy and working and trying to manage everything. So I actually love when he plays a game. But yeah. I do remember being really young and dating somebody who, like, for 14 hours straight, you couldn't peel him away from it. And he would, like, this man spent our rent money on a SpongeBob SquarePants bounce house because it was on sale. Oh so I guess I have to remember and think back to that experience to remember what some women out there are dealing with because it's been so long that I take for granted how lucky I am. But yeah, there is a lot of that out there. That's true.
20 times worse now for things that they're requiring of women.
Yeah, I was like, I can't believe I have to explain to you why you can't spend the rent money on a SpongeBob SquarePants bounce house, but I guess here we are. So yeah, that's definitely a problem, and there is a lot of that. There's a lot of never grow up,
but this is all
on both sides too. There's a lot of the never grow up.
This is part of the Aeon of Horus, this magical aura that they've cast on the pop culture and in the Western world for sure, is that we don't have to grow up. We self-actualize just by consuming. No responsibilities. And it's funny when they talk about what men need, but what men need for their own development is to focus on someone else's need.
Yeah.
Like that's actually what they need, is to fulfill a need of somebody else, female. Yeah.
Do you know what Andrew says that he thinks the definition of a good man is? He says, a good man is somebody who makes everyone around him's life better just by being in it.
Yeah.
If everyone around you's life is better because you're around, then you're probably a good man. And I think it's the same thing for women. I think women also need to understand, like I was told on Twitter the other day that number one, I'm a sex worker because I'm married, and that's just sex work. I'm just getting paid in a different way because I'm married. Wow, nice take. And this was from a woman. And then the other thing they told me was that, oh gosh, I just lost my train of thought. It was about that me focusing on like my kids, my husband, caring for others around me is slavery. I'm enslaved. And I'm like, I think that we have confused like service, because I'm going to tell you something. My natural way of being, I love to take care of people around me. I love to do that. I like to cook for people. I like to clean up after them. I like to take care of people when they're sick. I like being helpful. I like making people happy. It brings me joy. And I feel like when I was younger and growing up, people were trying to smash that out of me. People were trying to tell me, no, you can't do that. You'll be exploited. It's slavery. You can't. And I was like, but I like this. And that's really all I ever wanted to do. And I am happy when I'm in service to people. That's what I like. Now, I know not everyone's personality may be that way, but like we're going to Nashville and I'm like sitting here going, okay, I'm going to bake everybody cookies to bring. And like, I'm so excited to see my friends and hug them and everything. I love doing things for people. Like I don't know if there's anything to the love language stuff, but if there is, that's my love language. I like to do for people. I like to serve them. I like to make their life easier, do something nice for them. That's what I like to do, and it makes me happy. And I don't like living in a world where I'm told that that makes me a stupid, brainless, brainwashed slave who can't advocate for herself. I'm like, half the internet thinks I'm this like awful, mean lady who just yells at everyone if they see my debates, and then the other half thinks I'm a brainwashed slave. So I don't know what. I don't know. You guys decide.
I mean, you're really, to use these woke words, privileged. You have a good father, you have a good husband. So coming from a perspective of these girls and their grievances, a marriage without Christian principles is kind of slavery. And especially if you are going to marry one of these submit to me red pill guys.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because the next thing on my list that I was waiting to talk about is, because we're in America, I was just having a conversation with a girl who's kind of a red pill girl, and I was saying, because she was like, why are the Christians like not understanding what I'm saying? And I was like, well, we have some problems. And one of the problems is that because this is a Protestant nation, it was founded by Protestants, that, you know, some of them wanted this separation of church and state, and they took the sacraments out, right? That's what the Protestants did. They took the sacrament out of marriage. So by the time you got to modern America, you have marriage, but it's not a sacrament, and it's basically just a legal contract. And that's not what we conceive of marriage as being, as Orthodox. And like, it's something I was missing until I became Orthodox, because I knew it was supposed to be more. I knew that it was supposed, at least for me, it was way more than just like a legal contract or a living situation or something like that. But that's because I grew up Protestant and there was no sacrament. And it was just like, oh, well, this is just how we live. And people will give you funny reasons. They'll say like, oh, it's the most efficient. It's the best division of labor. And I'm like, those are not things that are going to hold your marriage together when things get really hard, because life gets really hard, and you need more than a legal contract that you went down to the city hall to fill out. And you need more than, oh, this is just the most efficient way to divide labor or pay bills. But that's what it is to most people. So it shouldn't be surprising that it's obsolete. People consider marriage obsolete, because what even is it? So we should go back to having like an Orthodox sacramental view of what marriage is.
If you take the covenant out of it and the romantic and the martyrdom, you just have a business transaction, like you said. And for women, you do a lot of times get screwed in that business transaction, looking at it from a worldly perspective, because now you've been taken out of the workforce. If you agree to live the traditional child rearing way, you've been taken out of the workforce for 20 plus years. You are at the whim of a person who does not have the scruples to, stick it out with you, because they're not relying on the Christian principles. This is just the business transaction for them. They might have some special feelings for you in the beginning, but that's going to wear off. Right. And so this is a huge risk for women, that as she ages and that she hits the wall, as they like to call it, and then she gets traded in for a new model. And if she gets no financial support, and a lot of the guys are like, well, she's going to take me to court and take everything I ever earned, half my stuff. And it's like, you just asked her to give up her entire like earning potential. Not that we're trying to be boss bitches, but we have to eat and keep the lights on. Right. And I think guys get this wrong. Like, we don't want to do this. This is survival. Right.
Well, I think for
because
you
who
and
is
I,
taking care of us?
you and I, it certainly was. It's changed so much over the generations, because like my mother would always put that in my ear of like, you can't trust men. You've got to have a plan B. You have to have your own money. You've got to have your own job. You've got to, because it's too risky and they're going to screw you over. And so it was almost like it's surprising I ever even wanted to get married growing up hearing this all the time, because she just made it sound like such a silly, foolish risk. But that's what the red pill guys are doing to men now. So you've got feminists telling the women, the men don't bring anything to the table. You don't really need them anymore. You can make your own money. You can have your own life. And what are they even doing for you? Like, why should we even bother with them? They're just going to use and abuse you. They're just going to, like you said, trade you in for a younger model once you get older. And then you've got the men doing the same thing on the other side, telling women or telling young men, just get a vasectomy in your 20s. Don't get married. It's a losing game. And both sides have points. Look, I'm not like delusional. I understand. My first marriage didn't work because the guy left me. Okay. He left me with 2 little babies and I was alone, and it was devastating and it was horrible. So it's not like I haven't gone through it. I've gone through the worst part of what can happen to you. Imagine being 22 years old and I was actually pregnant at the time, about to have a baby, and I've got a 2-year-old, and the guy I've known since I was 12 was just like, sorry, I've got a bunch of personal crap. I don't want to do this. I'm out, and just left. And so then my mother's words in the back of my head, all her fear mongering about it wasn't going to work out. I'm thinking, is she right? Is she right? Now, of course, well, it didn't even take long. With a little hindsight, I was able to look back and say, no, the reason I ended up in that situation is because I listened to the modern idea of just live with your boyfriend. It's basically the same thing. Oh, you guys have been together for 3 years. You can pay the bills together. Like I bought into all of that it was basically the same thing. And from a Protestant, like this nominal Protestant upbringing I had, it didn't seem like a big deal. I was like, well, I'm monogamous and we're gonna get married. And,
So were you legally married or not?
No, we weren't legally married. We just lived together and always would say we were going to. And it was the classic thing where I'm going, how about now? And he's like, maybe soon, right? Which, should I have known better? Of course. And I have to have my own responsibility for putting myself in that situation. But I was in a home with my mother, who was insane and had a really, really difficult childhood taking care of her. So it was like leaving that situation to go live in what seemed like a better situation and being able to rationalize it. And all my friends are doing it. And like, even my church didn't really bat an eye because everyone's doing this now. And this is just how we do it. It's just, it's the year 1999 or 2000 and we can do this. So I rationalized it and ended up in a really bad situation. And it really wasn't until I changed what I was doing and changed myself in a lot of ways that I found the right guy. And then the other thing I tell people all the time, because they'll say, how do I find a good wife? Or how do I find a good husband? I don't think you just find one. I think they're made. You learn to be those things. So like when Andrew and I first got married, we weren't like awesome husband and wife to each other. It took us like 5 years to really get the steam under us. Like we fought more in the beginning and we just were kind of dumb, and both of us needed a lot of practice and teaching each other how to treat each other. And we just hung in there together and taught each other. And that's how we did it. But I just think that this idea of like, if marriage is just a legal contract or it's just like a convenient living situation, you're going to end up like I was when I was 22, because some stuff happened to this guy that was hard and he was having a hard time dealing with it. And he just felt like he wanted to get away from everything and just took off. So it's like, that's not going to work.
Women are not cohabitating anymore. That's the new trend. I like how these ideals go around now, like trends. Like we're no longer plucking our eyebrows and living with our boyfriends. Like,
yeah, I know. And so I think that the red pill is just the flip side to feminism, and both are a problem. There's another little phenomenon that I have noticed, though, that I wanted to get your take on specifically, because I value your opinion a lot. And I feel like I can be a bit of a bull in a china shop, and I can be a little bit rough around the edges at times. And I feel like you're so much more graceful than I am. But a lot of the trad wives online. Mm-hmm. So in Twitter land, where everything is crazy and everything's magnified and it's more crazy than normal, there seemed to be this phenomenon I would notice of trad wives. They would have like a handle, something like mine, that designates them as like, I'm a traditional wife. I think they have a different conception of what that means than I do. And maybe it's because I'm a country girl. I was raised on farms. I have 5 kids. So I've never had a life of like being dainty or delicate or anything like that. It's always been like hard work. And my grandma and her mother were like these tough ladies that they would go out back and kill a chicken and roast it for dinner and not bat an eye. They would like roll cigars and they would carry like heavy stuff and be doing like brutal farm work and stuff. And they were pretty tough ladies and they lived long lives. And that's the culture I'm from. And there were women on Twitter basically telling me, oh, the minute I get pregnant, I'm going to put my feet up on a stool and I shouldn't do anything. Like, and they're bragging to each other. Oh, when I was pregnant, I didn't even like get off the couch and my husband pumped the gas and I didn't so much as lift a finger. And this one woman was like, if she's pregnant, she gets anything she wants, period, end of story. And I was just like, what? No, this is what, so like their conception of being a traditional wife to them seemed to be like, I wear the pretty dresses and curl my hair and I look adorable and maybe I bake some muffins if I'm having a high energy day. And then you do all the work and pay all the bills and do everything and you just pamper me. And it's almost like they thought being a traditional wife is like this, like a, what's the word? Like a hack or a cheat code. Yeah, like a cheat code where I can get my bills paid, have a job. Yeah. I can just be dainty and cute and like go on Twitter and tell people how I don't do anything. And I was like, no, like marriage isn't like that. And certainly motherhood's not like that. It's a lot of work and it's a lot of self-sacrifice. And if you're in a family, especially a big family, the more kids you have, the more I think this is true. It's all hands on deck. I don't sit there and keep a tally mark of every little thing I do and every little thing Andrew does. It's like he is giving 100% and I am giving 100%. And sometimes that means like if he's, there were days where he'd work 16-hour days and I'd be like, well, I guess I'm going to vacuum the pool and I'm going to mow the lawn because he's not going to get home in time to do it. And I'm not going to be mad. It's just what has to get done and I'll do it. So I think I had a very different conception. And I felt like they had a very princess mentality that if I'm a traditional wife, this is what it means. I have big boobs and blonde hair and a pretty dress and like the girl who's all over TikTok right now. She's very popular.
Exactly who you're talking about. And it's a fetish.
Yes, that's what it is. They're fetishizing my actual life. And that's why I think I got a little salty about it because I was like, wait a minute. This has been 22 years of really hard work for me. And I've put everything I've had into it. Like there's been really tough years where, I had 5 kids under 11 and under, and I'm like nursing 2 kids and I'm, homeschooling and taking care of the house and like helping my husband who's working himself into the grave so I can stay home. Like, I don't know where you got this idea, but I felt like they were fetishizing my actual life.
Yeah.
And maybe that's on me. I'm not a red pill guy dating coach. I'm not here selling you guys anything sexy. I'm not here selling you a product and saying, buy my course and I'll tell you how to be a feminine woman. I'm not doing any of that. I'm actually selling something that no one probably wants to buy, which is, hey, live this life of service and selflessness and hard work. And I promise that after a couple of decades, you'll really start to like reap the benefits. And I know that's not a sexy, popular message, but what do you think of when you think of like traditional women? We kind of talked about high value men or traditional men. What do you think it means when you're like a traditional woman?
Well, my first question is whose tradition are you following?
Yeah.
Because if we want to be frank about our own religion, like that is the traditionalist, that is the tradition, right? Mm-hmm. That we're talking about. But it's not like a 1950s Mad Men, like poodle skirt and vacuum and heels and pearls.
Donna Reed. Yeah.
Donna Reed. Because throughout history, man and wife have had to do, like you said, all hands on deck, do what it takes to survive. Maybe she had to join him in battle. Maybe he had to, take care of the cooking or whatever. It's like the gender roles in traditional Orthodox Christian marriage are a little bit fluid.
Yeah.
And we talked about this in our marriage counseling. Like, what if your husband had an accident? He couldn't do X, Y, and Z. Does
Right.
that mean that another man steps in and takes over? No, you have to do this. Or if she,
Right.
you just pick up the slack where you can, because it's not like these tasks are gendered, and
Yes.
it's
Yeah,
not
like-
degrading to
the
do
women
it.
that were just screaming at me on Twitter because I pumped the gas. They were like, "You're a fraud. You're a fraud, and you're not a real trad because you pump gas." And I was like, "Well, what am I going to send him out
Yeah.
to pump my gas when I'm the one taking the car?" Just silly things like that, where I was like, let's not get carried away with gendering every task.
And there was another girl on Twitter who, she just puts on her puffy sleeves and say, just submit and you'll find a great husband in no time. And it's like, girl, that's not how you do it either. And I loved what you were saying with Patrick about submission and the right way to think about it and the fetish way to think about it.
Yeah.
And this gets into creepy territory too, with like Dom, master slave dynamics, which is part of Satanism.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another spin on it. We don't have to go down that road, but I think you all know where I'm going with that. Like, full on submission in every instance of everything to every man is going to get you used and abused.
Yeah. And that's why there's a couple words that I try to like explain to people what I mean by them and what I think the culture has ran and taken with them. So submission is one of the words. Patriarchy is one of the words. Submission is one of the words. There's a lot of words. But yeah, submission doesn't mean, and this is what they always think I mean, submission doesn't mean that if I burn the cookies, Andrew beats my ass, okay? It doesn't mean that if I disagree with him, he says, I am the man of the house and this is the last word I will hear on it. It doesn't mean that, okay? For one thing, like I've heard him when he hasn't known I'm listening, describe me to people as like, he feels like I'm like his, you've said this, the warrior queen. He's like, I know. We had a home invasion once, and Andrew went with the shotgun to the top of the stairs because there were people in our basement. But he knew, and he had trained me, that I'm behind him guarding the kids' bedroom with the handgun, so that if, God forbid, they get through him, they got to go through me next. So that's kind of like how I think of it. It's not this thing where I'm the slave, Andrew beats me and tells me, like, gives me money to do something because I have to ask if I can buy a soda from the store, and like this weird fetishistic idea people have of what my life is like and what I'm advocating for or what I talk about versus the reality. It's like, I think somebody asked if we were going to talk about female saints, and I said I'd love to do that in the future, because I think about women like Saint Olga. Like, I contemplated taking her as my patron saint because she's pretty badass and pretty tough, and like she avenged her husband and some evil things that were going on in a way that a lot of men probably wouldn't even do. And there's been a lot of really strong, tough women. It's just, so it doesn't mean I'm a strong, independent woman, I don't need no man. It means I'm a strong, independent woman with my man. Like, I'm very strong and tough and independent. Meaning, if Andrew has to go away for a few weeks or something, he doesn't worry too much because I can hold down the fort. I'm very competent. He's like, why would I want a wife? Just like women don't want a useless baby for a husband, men don't want a useless baby for a wife.
Exactly.
Why would he want a totally incompetent person who can't think for herself or do anything? He's like, I am too busy. How's she going to raise 5 kids? And I'm out there working all the time. He's like, if I couldn't trust her at home to like trust her judgment and raise the kids well and instill good values in them, or like hold it together when she's under stress or something like that. He's like, I can't have some person that's just like a crying, sobbing baby all the time, or has to have her feet up on a fancy pedestal because she's not getting off the couch today. Like, he's like, no, thanks. I don't need that in my life. And I don't think most men want that. Now, I know there's a lot of room in relationships for different dynamics because people are different. You know, like I'm married to the Marlboro Man. He is like a 1940s throwback, like everybody knows how he is. I'm how I am. We make a great team. There's a lot of men who would not be interested in me and certain characteristics I have. And there's a lot of women who might not like certain things about him. Everybody has a different dynamic, and that's fine. And that's why I don't think we can come up with a weird fetishistic stereotype of this is, you know, every man has to be Andrew Tate and every woman has to be the blonde TikTok girl who actually lives out of wedlock with her boyfriend and isn't married, and is not a trad wife at all, but is making TikToks of herself like cooking in a 50s dress with her Marilyn Monroe hair. I don't even think there's anything like inherently wrong with the aesthetic. It's a cute aesthetic, but this is not about aesthetics. The Christian life is not about aesthetics. It's not a cheat code where you ladies who were feminists and decided yesterday, now you're Orthodox Christian, and you're going to find a man and he's going to pay your bills and you never have to work again. And you can just decorate the house and bake muffins and that's your life now. No, we're all in a spiritual battle. And men and women need each other, and we should be loving and honoring and respecting each other. We shouldn't be at war. We shouldn't be trying to manipulate each other and destroy each other for our own purposes and things like that. Like, it seems like stuff you shouldn't have to say, but clearly it's stuff you have to say, which is why I was like, okay, I want to do a show with Patrick and I want to do a show with Jamie so we can clear up like our worldview and our perspective on these things, because people are so crazy out there and most people don't know what they believe or why they believe it at all. They just say nonsense.
I wrote this about 10 years ago, and the article is called Project Crazy Bitch, and it's about princess programming. And I don't know, I might have been like maybe the second person to coin that phrase or talk about that stuff, but I was going at it from the female perspective on female narcissism and the princess programming that started so heavily in the year 2000 when Disney princesses became their own thing outside of their movies. Do you remember?
Yeah. Yep, I do, because my first daughter was born in 2001. So I totally remember, because everything was Disney princess.
Yeah.
Everything. The milk, if you bought a carton of milk, it had a Disney princess. The orange juice had a Disney princess. If you went to McDonald's, it was Disney princess toys. The pajamas, you couldn't find normal pajamas. They had to have a Disney princess on them. It was everywhere.
Right. So this is linked. One of the things is just plain old capitalism. Spending money, acquiring the luxuries, and the men have to go out and, well, back then, 10, 15 years ago, I called it princess warrior programming because military recruitment was up a lot. We had a lot of wars going on. It was a very macho, stratified thing between boys and girls aisles in the store. So about 10, 15 years ago, it was all pink princesses for girls, all blue soldiers and military toys for boys. And this was the script that these generations were on, right?
Yeah.
And the princesses, like, one of the shows that encapsulated the idea would be like My Super Sweet 16. Do you remember that show?
Yes, I do.
So,
that's so hard for me.
Like The Fabulous Life of Jennifer Lopez, or like Jessica Simpson. But My Super Sweet 16, they always found the most unhinged, like crazy teenager who was just, like you said, spoiled rotten, basically. Yeah. And she would have a breakdown if she got the white Lamborghini instead of the pink one or something.
Yes,
it's just over the top.
Yeah.
Materialism, superficiality, narcissism, sociopath behavior, just off the charts. And so you do have a point with this princess thing. And I was the one to back it up for you 10 years ago in this book.
Yes. Please show everybody your book. Is that the one that you still sell?
Yeah, this is we're still part 2, and it's got the princess on the cover. Do you see her?
Yes, I do.
But her face is like haunted because
I see.
she looks in the mirror, it's just a mask, like Narcissus, right?
Yeah.
And she's under a spell. And she's standing on death and just consumerism. And it has a lot of the stuff that we talked about in the Satanic Witch, how to manipulate people. So there is that, look at this princess witch right there. And it was a little before that was the Paris Hilton era.
That looks like one of the Bratz dolls or something.
It is a Bratz doll.
Okay. Yeah. I had the worst time, as you guys know, 4 daughters. All of the family members and people would be buying my kids Bratz dolls, Monster High. And I was like, why are all my kids' dolls looking like hooker witches?
Yeah. Here's some typical Halloween costumes.
Like, oh, Rachel's weird. Rachel's just weird and she doesn't like that stuff because she's a Bible thumping weirdo.
You see the Halloween costumes from that era? Just sexy everything.
Yep, sexy. My kids, my youngest one calls it, you met Betty, she calls it sexy season. She's like, oh, sexy season's here. Because most people call it spooky season. And she's like, no, it's sexy season. She's like, they'll take a VeggieTales, they'll take like Donald Duck and make it a sexy outfit for some lady to wear. And I'm like, you're right, you do. It's so true.
And then you've got your Bridezillas. Remember that show?
Yep.
So you Super Sweet 16 to Bridezilla, and who wants to marry somebody who acts like that?
Exactly.
Right. So I understand where guys are coming from when they're like, I don't want that. But again, that's just the media. That's not every girl.
Yeah.
Most girls are sincere and they just want to be loved. Okay. They don't want to manipulate the money out of you, because girls at their core don't care about that stuff. Honestly, they want to be loved and seen and cherished and heard and validated. They don't want to be like bestowed lavish gifts if you are going to treat them like crap. They would rather have you loving them. And women, and good women, will follow you through a lot of ups and downs, hard times. They will fill in the gaps. They'll be there for you. They'll be your ride or die.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And I think both men and women, when we're little and we haven't been, I mean, it's hard now because everybody is programmed from infancy now. But certainly, like when you and I were growing up in the 80s and 90s, it's not that stuff wasn't around. It totally was. But it wasn't, you didn't have your first iPad when you're 2 years old. There's a really great Bo Burnham song called Welcome to the Internet that is like the most true comedy song that's ever been written. It's actually really funny because it's so true. And he does this creepy like little part in the song talking about how your mommy gives you her iPad when you're 2 and it does all the things they designed it to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it basically gets you addicted to the internet, and the internet has everything. Any fetish, any weird thing, any corn, any crazy stuff, like everything from a recipe to how to kill someone, like is on the internet, right? And it's just, he says it was always the plan to put the world in your hand. Mm-hmm. And I think that now it's taken women and made them into that worst version. So like you're watching these dating shows. There was this girl on the whatever podcast talking about how much satisfaction it gave her to break men, how she would date men, get them to fall in love with her and just wreck them and destroy them. And she was like really visibly taking joy in the thought of like destroying a man and crushing his soul. And then the men, the red pill men like Tristan Tate, who we just watched, same thing. I'm gonna teach you how to take an innocent young girl who's a virgin, convince her that you love and care about her and she's important to you, take her virginity from her, and then discard her. It's like the evil in the world has reached such a fever pitch that it's making the worst of both sexes. And it's like the Spider-Man meme where they're both pointing at each other. We're all pointing at each other, mm-hmm. right? Saying who it is. No, it's the men. The men are bad. No, it's the women. The women are evil. And it's like, both of them are pretty evil in a lot of places, but I don't think it has to be that way. And that's what that's why Christ came, right, to save us from that, from this world, from death and evil, and that's why the red pill does not have the answer for you. If you are a young man or a young woman, OnlyFans is not the answer. Hustlers University is not the answer. Neither of those things are going to help you. Now, you can sit there all day and cope to me that you love your materialist world. You don't believe in God. This stuff doesn't matter to you. You don't want a family. There is no meaning for you. It's just one dopamine hit after the next. But that's not how the world works, and that's not how human beings work. For instance, Rollo Tomasi has been married for 27 years. The guy who's telling everyone not to get married and to get a vasectomy, I believe he also has a daughter, and he's been married for 27 years. So clearly this wasn't enough for him. Clearly he wanted something else. So it's like they're selling you a product. It's not that they're not telling you some truth. All gurus, cult leaders, scam artists.
That's how disinfo works, is you have to mix in a little bit of truth. Oh, yeah, we're part of the matrix. And then you get people on board that way. And
yeah, exactly. So it's not that they don't tell some truth. It's not that they don't get it right oftentimes when they're describing the problems. I agree with them on some of the things that they say, which is why I go on some of these shows or engage with some of these people or debate some of these people, is because, like, I want to engage with them because I'm like, you got a few things right, but here's where you went wrong, and here's where you're leading people astray, and here's why your worldview cannot have an answer for people. Mm-hmm. Your worldview cannot give people salvation. It can't give them meaning. It can't give them purpose, which is what human beings really want. The other stuff, the corn, the cars, the dopamine hits, that's very temporary. And who wants to spend life chasing dopamine hits? And what's the point of self-improvement? Because some of these guys will try to band-aid it by saying, well, I do tell men to improve themselves. I tell them to work out, and I tell them to be a high-value man. But then you ask him what a high-value man is, and he can't tell you. So it's like, you're missing telos, you're missing purpose, you're missing meaning. And that's what human beings need. We need truth and we need purpose. And the red pill can't give you that. And feminism can't give you that. And the princess life can't give you that either. So thank you for coming to my TED Talk. No, I'm just kidding.
No, but you're so right about that. And that's, I had to revise how I think of princesses, though, and royalty. And because we are royalty, if our father is a king, our heavenly father, then we have that sovereignty, and we have to bring back like decorum and dignity to the world. And so acting like a princess takes on a different meaning than just being pampered in luxury. You are now in a position of servitude, but with sovereignty. So
it's really about duty. It's, and I think this is something both the red pill guys and the feminism people don't get. Both of them want maximum pleasure and minimum responsibility, when really the key to meaning in life is to have a lot of responsibility and to do your duties, and that's what gives you. So if you're a person who acts in that way, good things do come to you. So I mean, like you were just saying, I have something of a privileged life. I would totally agree now. In fact, I was telling a woman who was telling me I was a slave on Twitter, I was like, that's weird because I have a pretty dang good life for a slave, and I could never have the life I have now just on my own without Andrew. Mm-hmm. And he says all the time, he would never have the life that he has now without me. It was us doing those things together. And it was both of us having a mentality of maximum responsibility and duty to ourselves, to our family, to our community, to our church, that gave us meaning and got us through hard times. And it gives you a reason to get up in the morning and do the things you don't want to do. Life is a lot of shit you don't want to do. Yeah. So, I mean, if you're just chasing dopamine highs, you're going to end up at the bottom of you're going to end up with addictions or problems. a lot of these people have mental issues. I've seen a lot of streamers who do this kind of work take like extended breaks because they have like mental issues they're dealing with and stuff like that. And they'll still insist they don't need God and that they're atheists and they're fine and they're happy, you know, even though I just had to take a 3-month break because I am battling like crippling depression all the time. But it can't be my atheism and my lack of meaning and purpose and my material worldview that's giving me this existential crisis. It can't be that. But yeah, I think what you were saying about a princess, finish your thought, because I'm terrible at interrupting you, about what a princess life really is through like an Orthodox lens versus a Disney lens.
It is carrying yourself in a certain way, no matter what the circumstances are, that you are not going to let people mistreat you. You are not going to debase yourself. You're going to have boundaries around your health and be selective in who you allow into your inner circles, who is looking at you, if you want to put it that way. It is, I always think about like sororities. So there's no desperation for validation and approval.
Yeah.
Because you already are what you are. And that's why I would never join a sorority, because they want to embarrass you and they want to make you do something to lower yourself so that you can join them. I would never do something like that.
Yeah.
What else? Just the way that you present yourself. You don't have to be hyper girly or feminine, but the way you carry yourself and dress and present is just different.
Right.
You're not gonna have a lot of like ripped clothes and hoodies with misfits on it and, you know, ratty t-shirts. And this is not becoming of a child of God. You know, if your dad was a king, would he want you to look like that? Like a ragamuffin? You know, he wants the best for us. He wants us to enjoy life and look like we belong in the castle, right? Yeah, I'm just still working on the whole like old princess versus new princess. And it's very real when you get married, because you are crowned a king and queen.
Yeah.
And then you carry yourself like a queen. Like you said, I live a really great life. So you can go from the pit of despair to being a queen and living like that.
Yeah. I feel like if anything, my life is a testament to that, because I came from a really low, you guys. I talked about it a little bit, but people don't even know probably most of the stuff that's gone on and the things that I had to overcome to get here. And I did not do that through some externality or anything like that. It was really all work on myself and figuring out what God wanted for me. It was more something like that. It wasn't like this, I'm gonna like, you know, like the red pill prescription. It's kind of the same thing for women, where it's like, oh, if you just get in shape, those things are good. I've been getting in shape this year. I've been in great shape in the past. I read a lot. There's lots of self-improvement things I do, but it's a lot more than that. It's so much more than that. And it was like learning that I teach people how to treat me.
Yes.
And learning that even though I love to serve people and do things for them, that not everybody is deserving of that. And some people will take advantage of that. Just like, that's what I mean when I say like working on myself and adjusting my own attitude where it needed, because I had some attitude issues when I was younger too. I just had to unlearn a lot of garbage, to be honest. And it was really just like choices I made consistently to do what was right, and to have like a longer term mindset, not just like what I want right now, but what I want most overall, and working really hard. You know, like, again, not a very sexy message, but if you saw what my life was like 20 years ago, and compared it to what it's like now, like my grandma is always like, you should write a book about your life. And I'm always like, Grandma, nobody cares about my life. And she's like, I think they would. And she's always trying to get me to do that. And I'm like, because she's like, oh, what's the next book? And I'm like, it's another book that's not about me. And she's always disappointed because she thinks I should write a book about my life. But no, it's like, I got the happy ending. I got the happy ending I should not have gotten. My parents are divorced. My dad's been divorced 4 times. My mom has struggled with mental illness and addiction her whole life. So is my sister. I started out in life wrong. I moved in with the boyfriend. I got pregnant out of wedlock. I did a bunch of stuff wrong. I should not be here where I am, but by the grace of God, I am here. So it's like, if you do those things, you can fix all that stuff. And my kids have a great life, which is what I'm the most proud of and the most happy for, is that I created the family I always wanted for my kids. So you can do that. If you come from a crap family, you guys, you can overcome all of that and break the cycle and create a peaceful, wonderful, loving home with a family in it for yourself. But you need God to do that. And I know there's people who will never believe that and they will argue. But from my opinion, you need Christ, you need the church, and the Orthodox Church is the true church. So anybody watching, if you don't know what that is, please go to Jay Dyer's channel. Please Google it. Google an Orthodox church near you and go visit one, because it's the medicine for these problems we've been talking about for the last 2 hours now.
Part of our antiphon in our liturgy, the line says, he redeems your life from the pit and crowns you with steadfast love and mercy. And so anywhere that you are now, if you are in the pit, I've been in the pit, Rachel's been in the pit,
Yes.
A lot of us have been in the pit, but we were brought out of that, just like the prodigal son came out of the pig pen, went back to his father, got cleaned up, and was crowned and a prince again. We can do this. We can become real queens and kings through Orthodox life.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great place for us to stop and take a look and see if we got any dono chats, some dono chat questions from people. We do have a few. Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. Moldy Apple sent $13.37, and he said, based donation platform. If you guys don't know, Dono Chat is Andrew's creation, and a lot of people who don't want to use YouTube for whatever reason, or perhaps can't use it. So it is a based donation platform indeed. Thanks, Moldy Apple, for that one. Anonymous sent $10 and said, haven't caught the whole thing, but the corn also turns otherwise normal people into the worst of the worst when in an erotic haze, as seen in the family-oriented, trans, and borderline underage looking girls pushed in corn today. Do you have any thoughts on that, Jamie?
This is the gateway to all of the New World Order almost. I mean, they know when they are invading other countries to blast this stuff to demoralize and mind control the people. So they know that it's a weapon. It's also, like you said, a gateway for demonic activity, maybe the easiest gateway there is.
Yeah.
You're never doing it alone. I'm just going to say that if you know anything about the occult and why it's so important to be in a covenant relationship and only save that kind of activity for your spouse and when you're alone with your spouse, because when you're alone, you are not alone.
Yes. There are other entities there with you. So, yes. Yeah. And that's totally true. It's like you said, if it wasn't a gateway to the demonic, we would not see the most popular categories being girls who look underage, familial situations, trans stuff, those kind of things. It's all, and it is very much like a drug in the way that most people will start with something kind of normative, and just like drugs, the longer you've been doing it and the more you've been viewing that stuff and doing what people often do when they're viewing that stuff, the more crazy stuff you need to get the same effect. So people end up going to some really dark places and checking out some things that nobody should ever see.
It also has the ability to change your sexuality, like
Yes.
turn you Skittles or
It
CP.
It really does. Okay, so in my MK Ultra research, Dr. Robert Heath, who was at Tulane University, proved that this was the case on horribly unethical experimentation he was doing on people. It's terrible stuff he was doing. But what he was doing was taking people who were Skittles and putting electrodes in their brains and stimulating certain parts of their brains while having them watch straight corn, and then vice versa, taking straight people and making them view homoerotic things. And he was able to successfully do this, and it's like part of his work, which has been condemned, and so it's never going to be recognized by the mainstream. However, sick of a thing as it was that the man was doing, he kind of proved, hey, we can like use this to program people, which is why I think when you see these sissy hypno programs that tell men to transition and things like that, it's always you find it through the trans corn. That's how you find it. Very, very disturbing stuff. Extremely, it's so much like the MK Ultra mind control stuff that they were doing to people that I can't imagine it's not related. I just can't imagine that it's not, which is why I wrote that piece on it, because it's really nuts. And I know that piece is very dark and people read it and they're like, why did you make me read that? But because I want people to know that the red pill guys, some of them will tell you not to watch it, but most of them say it's fine. Most of them say it's fine for you. It's not a big deal. Alex will tell people that. He's like, well, there's nothing wrong with it. And Andrew's always saying he thinks it's like the number one problem. He's like, if there's one thing I could do and make it legal and completely cleanse the country of it, would be that. He's been against it since I met him, which was really weird in 2007 when I met him, to meet a guy who was like, no, that stuff is horrible. I don't go near it. Like that's for, he was just so against it back then, even when he was 24 years old. And I was like, oh.
And they don't realize this is why you're bad with girls, because you've been viewing them through this lens.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? It's starting to affect the women. So we're seeing a lot of women, the rise in women using corn is insane. And I think that's why you're now getting, like in the music industry, tons of songs and imagery with BDSM themes, girls saying they like, getting beat or choked, or, it's like a popular thing now. They're trying to make it cool. And I'm like, why are all these women trying to pretend like they like being abused during sex? This is very disturbing. It's probably coming from corn. And every little kid with a phone can see it now.
They're going to sell the male sex bot to women because he's going to have a vibrating ding-a-ling.
Yeah.
Or whatever it is that they're used to. And I was just thinking about this, like, if he's connected to AI and the Internet of Things and the beast system, as you say, you're going to have to submit to that thing too.
Yeah.
If you get a robo-lover.
That's a very good point, but I'm kind of laughing in the back of my head because I know Jethro's probably going to clip Jamie saying vibrating ding-a-ling for a month.
Out of context.
And then we have another dono chat here from a user named Kim Kardashian's Diarrhea for $5. And this person said the culture has taught young men to be emotional, feminine coomers, so they end up having bad relationships with the modern masculine woman, and that makes the manosphere appealing to them. Totally. I totally agree with that. It's another inversion, right? Tell the women to be masculine boss bitches and tell the men to be baby coomer, chicken tendy chocolate milks and just fap all day to the corn. It's a total inversion of how God designed. He made them man and woman, and he designed them a certain way. He didn't make them to do those things. So it's a total inversion. I agree.
One thing you can learn from Andrew Tate is that people respond to hyper masculinity. They want that. They want the patriarch. They want a strong dad, like a man who's in charge. You've heard that joke. Is he hot or in charge? Right.
I don't think I have, but
is he really good looking, or is he just like present and in charge and responsible for things. Because that's a really attractive quality to, know where you are, know how you got there, not be drunk, have enough money, know how you're getting home. Like all of those adulting things are becoming more and more scarce.
Yeah. And like our daughters, now that 2 of them are adults, they're always saying like, we always thought dad was kind of like, we thought we had the strict parents, right? We thought we had the tough dad and the strict parents, but they've both sent me multiple messages being like, thank goodness, thank you guys for like teaching us the things, because like our friends don't know this stuff, and now we can see like what a disadvantage they're at, and how lucky we were to have, a good strong dad who didn't just like totally let us get away with shenanigans, who didn't let us leave the house with booty shorts on or our boobs hanging out, and a mom who also wouldn't let us do that stuff and wouldn't just just didn't throw us to the beast system and be like, well, it's what she wants to do, and she's a strong, independent woman, and she should make her own decisions. Andrew was like, no, there's a reason why you're the children and I'm the dad, and like my job is to protect you and keep you safe and teach you how to live. So that's what I'm going to do. And I don't care if your friends agree, like whatever. We were not the friend parents, and everyone else had the parents who were friends.
Right.
Like a lot of our daughters' friends, their parents, like the minute the kid would turn 16, like the parents are smoking weed with them, drinking beer with them, partying with them and their friends like they're friends.
Mm-hmm.
And we never did that. So
Father Josiah did a really good 10-minute homily on patriarchy that you guys should look up, like how a strong man treats a woman.
Yes.
That was really good. But I find that what works really well in like raising children dynamics is the good cop, bad cop. Like he's the strong one and she's the soft one.
Yeah. And I think we're like that for sure, but
yeah.
But I can even be like, well, I'm definitely the soft one for sure. But I mean, like my oldest is very, very pretty. And I could see when she got to be about 14, 15, she knew she was like the pretty girl in school. And a lot of people were like, her principal caught her doing something minor that she wasn't supposed to do, not a big deal. But it was like her and 2 of her friends. And the 2 friends got a harsh punishment and she didn't. And it was because this principal was like, oh, she's just so adorable and her outfits are so cute. And I just think she's so great. She was like simping for my kid. And wasn't even going to punish her. And so when we got home, I was like, well, she may not be going to give you consequences, but I am. And it's nice for you that you're a pretty girl. That's great. But you better be more than that. And you're not going to be spoiled. And you're not like, I did not want her having pretty girl syndrome. And I explained to her what that was and how it destroys girls. I'm like, you can be pretty and that's fine. I'm not telling you to like ugly yourself down to make people feel better. It's not about that. It's just about you not getting pretty girl syndrome and thinking you run the world and that consequences don't apply to you and things like that. You have the same standards for morality as everyone else. So like if you think you're getting away with it, not under my roof. But, now she looks back and she's like, thank goodness my parents like brought me back down to earth and taught me how to work hard and that I'm not exempt from the rules because I'm cute. That's crazy, but kind of digressing again. But yeah, I just think parents don't parent much anymore. Unfortunately, it's a lot of like, we're friends with our kids, and because of this idea of like relative morality and, liberty and well, as long as it's not hurting anybody, I feel like parents are like either some of them might still be super duper strict, but what I'm seeing all the time is just like really overly permissive parents. Just like, I mean, there's girls that are my youngest age, 11 years old, walking around in outfits that I'm just like, what?
Yeah.
And her mother will bring them to my house and drop them off. And the mom is there. And the girl's got like a little midriff shirt and her butt cheeks are hanging out of her shorts. And she's got more makeup than Jeffree Star, and she's like 11, and I'm like, what?
Yeah, they're
And
getting
that
toddlers and tiaras.
the impression that she's precious.
Yeah.
It gives her the impression that she's to be a hooker for the world or something like that. So I don't know.
It reminds me of Toddlers and Tiaras. Remember that show? Like, it
Yeah.
gets younger and younger.
Yeah. Yeah, and so we start with the hypersexualization, and it's like every parent wants their kid to be normal and fit in. And I'm like, in this society, the way that things are right now, I don't know if that's a good strategy.
Right.
If you're worried about my homeschooled kids not being socialized, Jamie has met one of them, and she will tell you there's nothing shy or unsocialized about her.
No, she's very precocious and intelligent.
Yeah, and she definitely is going to like stand up for herself and not be like used and abused. I'm very proud of them all for that. But yeah, it's just, we don't want princesses, and we don't want red pill dating coaches who are selling you Hustlers University. And I suppose if you have anything else, for us?
Come to all of our events. We're going to be in Franklin, Tennessee this weekend at the Rebels for a Cause event, and there's going to be a star-studded lineup. Rachel's going to be there, and you said Patrick's going to be there?
Yep.
I didn't know that. Jay,
kind of last minute thing. Andrew talked him into it, so
okay.
Andrew and I will be there, and Patrick will be there. Jamie and Jay.
Schroyer, Kathy O'Brien, Mel K, Faithless Town. It's going to be a 3-day awesome event, so come to that, and then come see Jay and I in Los Angeles on July 6th with Jamie Kennedy from Scream, and come with us to Italy. So that's probably the most exciting thing I have to talk about is in November, there's an Orthodox pilgrimage to Italy, and you have about 2 or 3 more weeks to reserve a spot and put down a little deposit. You don't have to pay the entire balance now, but you do have to give a little just to reserve your place. So please come. That's going to be amazing. I can't wait to have somebody else take over the plans, because I'm like a type A kind of like stick to the schedule kind of person, and that's all being handled for me. So if you just want like a relaxing trip where everything was already bought and paid for and planned, it's going to be so fun to see all of the Orthodox sites that were in 10 cities in Italy that were before the Roman Catholic Church.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think Jay just put up a video on his channel, right? I think there's a short little video with info about that trip. I did put the link in the chat a couple times for the Cause event in Nashville, but I'll add it to the description box if it's not in there. Or you can go to Rebels for Cause, like Google that, and you'll find the tickets on event right there. That's this weekend. And then tell them about your books. It seems like my chat doesn't know that you have amazing books.
I have 3 books, but I only sell 2 because I changed a lot of my viewpoints when I became Orthodox. So my books are called Weird Stuff, 2 and 2.5 Hollywood Mind Control, and they are full of stuff that I don't think anybody else talks about a whole lot. There's a lot of esoteric secrets that took me a long time to learn and put together for y'all. So if you want to be ahead of the curve in spiritual warfare, those books are kind of timeless in a way. And if I had wrote a 3rd one, it was going to be on androgyny, but I didn't get to it. But look what happened. So they're a little bit prophetic.
Yeah, so Jamie's handle is in the title too. So if you want to go follow her and subscribe to her channel, just go right to the title, and her handle for YouTube is right there.
Yeah, I have a show on YouTube that me and Rachel do a lot, and I have other guests called Out of This World under my name, Jamie Hanshaw, and I also have a new Rockfin where it gets crazy. So
I love her new Rockfin, you guys. You have to get Rockfin so that you can see Jamie's channel, because it's all the stuff that she can't really be as open about on YouTube, and she does really fantastic deep dive research on these topics that I know you guys will love. So go find her Rockfin, because the minute that I see her post, I'm like, yes, and I go right away to watch it. So
thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on my channel. I'm so excited that you finally got to be on my little baby, brand new newborn baby channel. Because you've had me on yours so many times and you've been so gracious about it. And we always have a great time when we stream. So thank you so much for coming. Thank all of you for being here and waiting for us in the beginning. And we will see you all again soon.